Hello and welcome to Link Ahead, the City of Dublin podcast. Well, we have had a wide range of guests on our podcast, from World Series winners to legendary broadcasters to Irish banjoists.
That's right.
And that was all just in 1 year. And many talented executives here from City Hall who make Dublin go.
But today, Lindsay, we have a first. Joining us today is Chief Billy Friend, Chief of the Wyandotte Nation and also a friend to our great city. Chief Friend, it is an honor to welcome you to Link Ahead.
Thank you. Very honored to be here today.
November is National Native American Heritage Month, and we're celebrating, there's celebrations, there's commemorations all over the country. Now, Native American Heritage Day is Friday, November 29th, and always the day after Thanksgiving. So we will light our Dublin Link Bridge in honor of that day. What does that day and that month mean to you?
It's really a great time of remembrance and pride for us. It's a time that we honor, we set aside time to honor our ancestors, to remember our history, and really to reaffirm our commitment to preserving our culture and our traditions and our values going forward for future generations. We would still like to see a national holiday someday set aside for Indigenous Peoples Day, but we're very honored that this month has been set aside and for us, and we take great pride in that.
Well, I know a lot of people who would support having the Friday after Thanksgiving become a national holiday.
Wow.
and what a worthy cause. The Wyandotte Nation has a special relationship to Ohio, and we'll certainly get to that in a bit. But let's talk about your trips to our great city here in Dublin, Ohio. You've brought interns here to see the public art monument to Leatherlips. How did you and your interns like it here?
We love coming to Dublin. We love coming to the park there. Such a beautiful park on the side of the river there, and the monument there, Leatherlips. Of course, it's a great photo moment. The kids can all get their picture taken there, and but we just appreciate the hospitality that's always been shown when we come there. People from the mayor to the city council, from people from the city of Dublin come out and just make us feel very welcome there. But it's Leatherlips is one of our chiefs, one of our former chiefs, and has quite a story that goes along with that. So it's really an educational moment for our interns as well, that we can kind of tell them the story of Leatherlips and share a little bit of that time in history and what was taking place at that time.
Well, and you nailed it with the photo moment, because that is such an impressive piece of public art. I mean, tell us about the first time you saw it. What did you take away from that?
Really, I mean, the first time and knowing the story when I went there ahead of time, I think the first time I was there was probably 2010, 2011, somewhere in that time period. And, just knowing that you're standing on the ground that your ancestors stood on, it's really a sacred ground to us, and just, sometimes it's that connection, when you stand in those places where, your ancestors have been, it really connects you to your past and to your history and to that, to our ancestors at that time.
Well, as you know, Chief, we recently brought on board a new park called Ferris Wright Park, which is the site of an ancient earthwork. We work to keep that history alive through storytelling in Dublin. That's the one thing. We always focus on the past as well as the present and the future. So you've been to this park for an opening house, and we've even planted a Three Sisters Yaqui, which means garden. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
All right.
Close,
All right.
Close enough.
Thank you. To honor the heritage. So, how can we continue to honor our relationship and tell the story of the Wyandotte Nation?
I think, really it involves acknowledging our shared history. And, I think there's a lot of ways that that can be done. One of our tribal chiefs here locally that spends a lot of time in Ohio as well, she always says, if you're going to talk about us, you need to talk to us. And I think that's very important, that inclusion, that it is a shared history. And, if the story is going to be told, the whole story needs to be told. And it needs to be told in a sensitive way that's sensitive to both sides,
right,
of that. So I think that's important as well.
Well, you mentioned that shared history. Let's dive into it a little bit more. The Wyandotte have a special relationship with Ohio. After centering in Canada and Michigan, the tribe came to Upper Sandusky in the early 1800s. And, as you mentioned, this wasn't a positive time in your history or ours. But now you have such a great relationship with Ohio. How was that relationship repaired?
It took a lot of communication. It took a lot of understanding, and really on both sides, realizing what was taking place during that period of time in our country. Even our tribe was split, along the lines of the War of 1812. There was a civil war within the tribe, and so we still had part of the tribe that was in Michigan that sided with the British and with Tecumseh. They was known as the Huron Party of the tribe. And then in Ohio, in Upper Sandusky, you had Chief Tarhe, who was the first one to sign the Treaty of Greenville after the Battle of Fallen Timbers. They were known as the Neutral Party. And even though the tribe, there wasn't a lot of animosity between the two sides, it was still, there was a lot taking place during that period of time. And a lot taking place in Ohio as well. You had settlers that was coming, from the east that had been given land grants by the U.S. government, and those land grants happened to be in Ohio, which was land that was already occupied by the tribes. And so it was a very volatile time in history. I always go back to what I had one of our tribal elders tell me one time. She said, "Chief, it's okay to look back. It's just not okay to stare." And there's a lot of meaning in that. It's okay to look back and learn from what took place at that time. But if you stare, then you become angry and you become bitter. And so I've really taken that into account in everything that we do, is that, okay, let's look back, let's learn from what happened and make sure it doesn't repeat itself. And I think on both sides, we've been able to do that, the state of Ohio and the residents of Ohio and the citizens of our tribes as well.
And speaking of connections to Ohio, you served on the board of Ohio History Connection. What drew you to that work?
Yeah, well, I'm still, I'm on my second term there. I think I'm in my fifth year or sixth year on the board there. It was outreach by, at that time, the CEO or the director of the Ohio History Connection, a man by the name of Burt Logan. And I tell people, I kept getting these phone calls and phone messages and emails from Burt. And of course, the Ohio History Connection, of course, used to be the Ohio Historical Society. And so it took me a while to put those two together, but just really formed a great relationship with Burt. And at his bequest, he asked me if I would run, put my name on the ballot, and serve on the board. And so I was actually the first tribal leader to serve on the board of trustees for the Ohio History Connection. And so it's been a great learning experience for me, to sit on that board. And I hope that I've been able to provide insight to the tribal viewpoint on the board as well. And so I think we've been able to make great strides going forward. And there's a lot of exciting things happening in the state of Ohio right now as far as tribal history goes.
Well, you have such an interesting story. You began working for the Wyandotte Nation in 1998 as a fitness center manager, and you worked your way up the executive ladder to human resources, casino manager, chief of staff, second chief, and now chief. Describe your daily responsibilities and tell us a little bit more about this work.
I'm in my 26th year. When I have the opportunity to go speak to children or students, whether they be elementary, junior high, or high school, I always let them know, growing up, when the teacher would ask, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" I can honestly say, I never one time said I was going to be a chief, an Indian chief, the chief of the Wyandotte Nation. But when I came here in 1998, we'd just built a wellness center, which we were one of the first tribes in the state to build a wellness center. And that's kind of where I got started. And really, I just became impassioned by wanting to know more about my tribe, my ancestors, where we came from, our history. And really, it was, I call it kind of a journey of understanding for me. But it really, by working up the way I did, I actually was elected second chief in 2006, became chief in 2011. And, but really that path to chief, all the different occupations that I served in, it really showed me what everybody does, how the tribe operates, how the tribal government operates. A lot of people don't realize that we are a sovereign nation. We're a nation inside of a nation. And so we operate much like the state of Oklahoma or the state of Ohio does. We provide, a lot of essential government services to our tribal citizens. And so, it's really been a great road here. As I said, I'm in my 13th year as chief. We serve 4-year terms, and so we have a constitution and bylaws. And so we're every 4 years I'm up for election. And so I think my election is again next year. But so we have no term limits. The chief prior to me served 28 years.
Wow.
Oh my. Well, you've done so much in your tenure, and we mentioned the interns a moment ago. That's a program you started, and you're really proud of it. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's really, it's one of the programs that I'm most proud of since I've been elected in office. We started that in 2007. And so I tell everyone there were several purposes of that program. Number one, we hire every high school and college student that puts in for a job that are Wyandotte citizens. We hire them here at our headquarters, and we scatter them out throughout education. They can work in our health department, a lot of different areas, accounting, HR. They can work in hotel and restaurant management, at our casino or hotel resort. And so the first purpose was to give them a job, to begin to teach them what work ethic is and what it takes to get a paycheck, and take them off their parents' roll, the payroll for the summer, give the parents a break. Number two is to expose them to what we do here at the tribe.
Right.
At that time when I became chief, we probably had about 400 employees. Today we're right at 1,000 employees. But a lot of our employees were not tribal citizens, and so probably less than 10% were tribal citizens. And so, our hiring policy is to hire the most qualified person for the job. So, and we noticed that a lot of Wyandottes were not getting hired because they were not qualified. And so, one of the purposes of this internship was to expose them to what we do here and expose them to opportunities so when we put them on one of our tribal scholarships and we pay for their college, that when they get that degree, that they know that they can come back here and come to work for us and be the most qualified for that job. And so that was one of the purposes. The other purpose was to introduce them to their culture and their history, and to teach them the history of the tribe and the culture of the tribe and the traditions and the things that we do. And so part of that is the end of the summer we go on a road trip. We take a week off at the end of the summer, and we go back to our former homelands there in Ohio. We take them back to Michigan. We've taken them to Canada. We've taken them to Kansas. We've taken them to Indiana. One year, one of our sponsors provided the money that we took them to Washington, D.C. Went to the National Museum of the American Indian. We spent a lot of time there. And so, that's, and really I tell people that when we go back to Ohio, we have the cemetery in Upper Sandusky. And so every student has a name tag on. And so, for me, it may say friend, Billy Friend on it, but below that, it'll have the name that I trace back to in Ohio. And so on that name tag, those kids, they go in the cemetery or they go to the Old Mission Church in Upper Sandusky, and they see those names. And then all of a sudden they look at their name tag and they see their name is the same as that name in the cemetery on that wall. And they'll say, am I related to that person? Is that my ancestor? And I'll say, yes, they are. And you can kind of see the connection begin to take place. And so for us, it's planting that seed, knowing that when you're in high school or in college, it may not be that big of a deal right now, but someday when they have their kids and their grandkids, they're going to know that they can take them back to that same place and have that same experience with them.
Well, you mentioned traveling to Ohio. We should mention we are talking to you over Zoom right now, and you are in Oklahoma, joining us there. You are headquartered in Oklahoma. How big is the Wyandotte Nation?
So very interesting. I won't go into all the details, but we just had our reservation reaffirmed in March the 17th of last year. And so March the 7th, I'm sorry. And so what that means is that when the tribes are relocated to Oklahoma, when Oklahoma became a state in 1907, it was automatically assumed that all the reservations were disestablished. And so at that time, we had what we called historical jurisdictions. And in 2020, there was a Supreme Court case called the McGirt case. And that McGirt case, what it did, it basically did away with the notion that the reservations had been disestablished. And so anyway, we were able to get our reservation reestablished or reaffirmed in March of this past year. And so our reservation is 20,000 acres. It's a lot smaller than the 3 million acres that we occupied in Ohio at one time, but it's 20,000 acres here. We're located in the town of Wyandotte. The town of Wyandotte is probably a population of about 700 people, and so very small. We're located in the northeast corner of Oklahoma. So where I'm sitting in my office, We are 6 miles from Missouri. We're 10 miles from Kansas, and we're 35 miles from Arkansas. So we're what they call in the four-state corner. We're in the same county. We're in Ottawa County, Oklahoma. There are 8 other tribes that are here. So we have more federally recognized tribes in one county than any county in the United States. 7 of the tribes here in Ottawa County were all part of Ohio at one time. And so our sister tribes or our neighbor tribes in Ohio are now our neighbor tribes here in Oklahoma as well. We have, in what we call our service area, we have about 1,000 Wyandotte citizens who live in what we call our 12-county service area here in Northeast Oklahoma.
Now, the Wyandotte was instrumental in founding cities like Detroit, Kansas City. At one time, Kansas City was named Wyandotte City. So can you tell us about the contributions and others of the nation?
We left Ohio. We were the last tribe to leave Ohio in 1843. We arrived in what is today Wyandotte County, Kansas, or Kansas City, Kansas. We were promised 43,000 acres of land there in that area. When our ancestors were dropped off the ship that night in the middle of the night, the steamships sailed away, only to wake up the next day to realize that there was no land there. The land had already been given away. And so eventually we negotiated a deal with the Delaware tribe, the Delaware Nation of Indians, and we purchased 25,000 acres, and eventually it became Wyandotte City at that time. Our forefathers basically platted out the city. If you go to Kansas City, Kansas today, a lot of the cities have Wyandotte names on them, or family names that were ancestors of ours. At that time, of course, Kansas was not yet a state, and so they were part of the Nebraska Territory. The first provisional governor of the Nebraska Territory was a Wyandotte citizen by the name of William Walker Jr. The Constitution of the state of Kansas, and so you have to remember, Kansas was the key vote that Abraham Lincoln needed, during leading up to the Civil War. He tried 3 different times to pass a constitution in Kansas, and it failed. And so they came to Wyandotte City, and they were able, with the help of the Wyandotte citizens, they were able to pass a constitution that would make Kansas a free state. And so that is called, actually today, it's called the Wyandotte Constitution in the state of Kansas. And so one of the largest underground railroads was there in a place called Quindaro. And Quindaro was a part of Wyandotte City as well. Quindaro was one of my ancestors. Her name was Nancy Quindaro Brown. And Quindaro means a bundle of sticks, which interpreted means their strength and unity. And so her and her husband established Quindaro as one of the largest free ports. And so they would bring slaves across from Missouri at night. They would bring them across the river. They would cover them with corn husk on barge and on ferries and bring them to Quindaro, and they would set them free there. And so our ancestors, we were only there for 24 years, but we really played a large role in the formation of what today is Kansas City, Kansas.
Wow, what a storied history. And according to our research here, the traditional tribal name is Wyandotte. I hope I said that right. And okay, and the language family is Northern Iroquoian. What else should we know about your history and origins?
Well, I think we had the first contact that we had with European settlers was in 1535, and that was with French Jesuit priests. And so 1535 to 1649. We lived in Canada, and at that time, the large war broke out between what was that time, we were actually a part of what they call the Huron Confederacy. And so anytime you see the word Huron, it's referring to the Wyandottes, because the Huron Confederacy was destroyed by the Iroquois Confederacy. They had what they called the Beaver Wars in 1649 and 1650. And so Huron was the name that the French had given us. And Huron actually was taken out to the word Hure, Hure, was the French word for hog. And so the hog had a large bristly hair on its back. And so the Wyandottes or the Huron at that time, that's what they wore as a headpiece, kind of like a mohawk. And so that was where the name Huron came from. And so, that was a part of our history that a lot of people don't realize. And so It's still a name, the Huron River in Michigan. You'll see the name Huron a lot misspelled, but it's referring back to the Wyandottes. Really, when I come to Ohio, I'm always amazed by all the city names, the counties, the river names, the creek names. Most of them are all after tribes, that were once there. And so I tell everyone, Oklahoma has 39 tribes today. At one time, 45 tribes called Ohio home. And so, really, we just kind of switch places.
Now, I love a lot of the symbols, like the willow tree and its branches for their resilience, and the humble turtle. Now, the tribe's ancient belief that the world was created on the back of a snapping turtle. Can you explain that?
Of course, you should be able to see behind me, we have the turtle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I put the Dublin flag right next to it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for
That was the flag I was presented at the Ferris Wright Day. And so,
awesome.
But yeah, the turtle, of course, is a part of our creation story. And of course, I'll just give you the short version, but the story went that the daughter of the chief at that time, you had the sky world and the water world. The sky world is where the humans lived, and the water world is where the animals lived, and they were separated.
Wow.
I'd never heard that before.
Short version of that.
No, that's impressive.
Quite a story. Chief, you've also helped us dispel folklore about rain during the Memorial Golf Tournament. So when it rains, that's called weather, right? Not a curse. And I know we've worked with you to try to dispel that myth. Tell us more.
I think it's called bad luck.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
It was brought to our attention several years ago. It was somebody had actually sent me an article out of the USA Today, and it was the first time that I'd ever heard the story. I think they moved the tournament last year. I think they moved it up a week or back a week.
Yeah, they have moved it. And I was going to give you the credit because I think ever since you got involved, we've actually had beautiful weather for the tournament. So
as a chief, you try to take credit for everything. You could definitely get the blame. It's kind of like being the president. You get the blame with the credit. So.
As we talk about Native American Heritage Month, a controversial topic always comes up, and that is the word Indian, whether it's related to parks, mascots, certain baseball teams. We have several Indian runs here in Dublin, all related to the Indian Run Falls watershed. What is your take on that topic?
I usually always lead with the fact that I'm not an activist, I'm a diplomat, and there are activists out there. But for us, we've always felt it's never been a big deal to us. Actually, the high school I went up to, the high school I attended, we were the Seneca Indians. That was our mascot, and we took great pride in that. Eastern Michigan, was involved in Eastern Michigan University at Ypsilanti, Michigan. They were the Fighting Hurons for years.
Wow.
And, and there was a big movement to replace that. And we wrote letters in support of the Fighting Huron, saying that as long as it's not done cartoonish or in a manner that wasn't right. But that was a matter of honor. We supported that. And so, all of our treaties refer to us as Indians. We signed 19 treaties with the federal government. And I always like to tell people we have a lot greater problems in Indian country than worrying about what somebody calls. We still have the highest incidence of diabetes. We still have the highest incident of infant mortality rates. On a lot of the reservations, we have the highest incidence of teenage suicide. We have a lot of problems, a lot bigger than what somebody wants to call their team or name their mascot. And so I've always refused to get involved in those, even though I have written letters of support to different places. Wyandotte, Michigan, their band is called the Marching Chiefs. And they were invited to go to Washington, D.C. to march in the inaugural parade one year when Obama was elected. And so they were going to make them cover their patch, and so we wrote letters in support of that. And so, like I said, I like to be I'm more comfortable in the role of a diplomat than an activist.
Sure.
On matters such as that. So.
Well said. All right. So you have visited Dublin several times, and we mentioned you are in Oklahoma. So help us convince our bosses that we need to take a field trip to come see you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you haven't been to Oklahoma, it's only fair that you come and experience Oklahoma as we've experienced Dublin, and we'll roll out the red carpet on your behalf.
Oh, how kind.
Thank you. Well, Chief, again, this has truly been an honor and a first for Link Ahead. And we end every episode with rapid fire questions for every guest. So if you're ready, we're ready.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Be honest. Do you listen to podcasts? And if so, which ones?
I listen to a few podcasts, not very often. We have a casino property in Wichita, Kansas. It's a 3-hour and 15-minute drive, so that's my podcast time when I'm driving there. But I listen to Joe Rogan. I kind of pick and choose who I like on Joe Rogan. Ben Shapiro. If my wife goes with me, she's a crime junkie.
No.
She loves the Crime Junkie podcast, so I have to endure that.
Well, your next trip, you can listen to season 3 of Link Ahead.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Okay, what book are you reading right now?
I just finished a book called Killing Crazy Horse by Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to start a book called The Pioneers by David McCullough, who's a historian. And it's actually about the westward expansion into Ohio. About the land grants, and so I'm looking forward to reading that. Just have read the introduction of it so far.
All right. Most interesting place you've ever visited?
That's a very good question. Really one of the most interesting places I've been is the mounds in Ohio.
Oh.
The Newark Mounds, which just received a World Heritage designation.
Yeah.
And really the first time that I went to the Octagon and the Great Circle, and learned of the intellect of our ancestors, being able to all the geometric designs and how they aligned with the solar and the lunar eclipses. And, really that was one of the most interesting places. And still every time I go back to Ohio, I try to visit one of the mound sites.
Lindsay, I just want you to know for record, because I'm from Newark, Chief, originally.
Okay.
So, and I've been there several times, but I just want for the record to be known that Newark is one of the most interesting places in the world.
Yeah. I was just in Newark. I was the keynote speaker at the Heritage Ohio convention a few weeks ago. And so they had it in Newark, down in an old theater.
Yep. The Midland Theater. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome place.
Yeah,
yes.
that's cool.
Wow. Bruce is beaming with pride now.
I am.
Okay. How about a place you've never been that's at the top of your list?
Probably Jerusalem.
Wow.
Yeah. Israel. I haven't had the opportunity yet to go. And so that would probably be one of the places that I would look forward to going to.
All right. We mentioned your job long ago as a fitness center manager. What do you do these days to stay active?
I work out twice a week with weights. I play pickleball twice a week.
There we go.
Oh,
There we go.
Scott's celebrating over there. Our producer, he loves pickleball, so he's
yeah. Pickleball is definitely an addiction. It's a healthy addiction. But
Yes. Yeah.
I think my hip and my knees may not say that. But,
I think the next time you're in Dublin, you'll have to take Scott on. So
Yes.
right next to City Hall, we have some lovely courts.
hey, well, I'll bring my pickleball paddle. I play golf just enough to stay bad.
All right.
So.
That's funny.
Well, we have some golf courses too, so come on up. All right, you and your wife Kelly have 5 kids, and you're now grandparents to twin boys. How exciting! What's the best part about being a grandpa?
Being able to send them home.
I can imagine.
Spoil them and send them home. No, I tell everybody if I had it to do over with again, I would have my grandkids first.
That's funny. That is funny.
They're just great. I mean, of course, they can't do any wrong. That's the difference between them and kids. Grandkids can't do any wrong. So.
All right. Something about Native Americans as a whole, the general public doesn't know, but we should.
I think number one, there's 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States, and so there's in the contributions that tribes have made over the years. I think really that it's an educational process that people need to learn more. I could go in detail in a couple of stories, but one of the stories I always like to tell was one of the first time I took interns to Ohio. We were in the Wyandotte County Museum in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, and there was a lady giving us a tour, and they had a room with Wyandotte artifacts in it, and there was a picture of a lady that we refer to as Mother Solomon up on the wall, and she pointed at that and made reference. She said, "This is Mother Solomon. This was the last living Wyandotte." And so, of course, there's 28 Wyandottes in the room, and I'm like, well, I think she was the last living Wyandotte in Upper Sandusky.
Okay.
And then I was speaking at an event at the Ohio History Center, and an older gentleman came up to me and said that in his history class when he was in elementary, he asked about the Indians, what happened to them, and his teacher said they all died. And I think, that really people need to realize that, we're alive. We're not only alive, but we're thriving today. We're not just surviving, and we're making great contributions to the societies that we live in today.
Well, that's a great segue. So, November is Native American Heritage Month, as we mentioned, and also a month where we talk a lot about gratitude. So, what are you grateful for?
Yeah, I'm thankful to be that I live in such a time and a place as this. I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to serve our nation. Everybody that works at the Wyandotte Tribe, we always say that nobody works for us, everybody works with us. And, we all serve, and there's no greater calling than that of a servant. And so I'm just thankful that I have the opportunity that I have to serve my people.
All right, finally, what is the Wyandotte word for thank you?
Tijame.
Tijame. All right, well,
Tijame.
Tijame, Chief Friend, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you as well for taking the time to connect with your city. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the many personalities and experiences that make Dublin a thriving place to live, work, and grow.